it takes long time, and once they are start building, and they also remain longer time. So both things are the complex in terms of lipid biology. Therefore, it takes longer time to see the signal of a chronic inflammation, small changes in inflammation. And sometimes in the human context, we start complaining when we have actually the organ dysfunction. We don't complain at the point of little bit inflammation. We directly go to the, and in context of our cardiac health, when we say the cardiac function is changed, the contractility of the cardiac is changed, our heart is changed, and that time people start complaining, or the chest pain when there is a myocardial infarction. But in reality, the many molecular signals are driving that trigger of the myocardial infarction or the heart failure. And in that context of the omega-6 is making the perfect storm for driving the chronic inflammation in the context of the cardiac health.
Yeah. Is there any situation that you've observed in the lab or that you're aware of in the literature where having a high omega-6 diet is beneficial?
High omega-6 diet is beneficial is I have not come there are many papers they are showing it that omega-6 don't have any harm. I will kind of re-emphasize on that point. Rather than beneficial, they are mentioning it don't have any harm.
Right. That's an important distinction.
Important distinction. But that point is, again, come back to the normal, that these fatty acids are essential, but they are not harming as of now when you don't have any injury or infection, because when you will have injury and infection, these fatty acid will get converted into a variety of those molecules, and those pro-inflammatory molecules will not take you back to the healing process or back to the homeostasis.
So it's a failure, right? So you're basically, when the omega-6 omega-3 ratio is skewed, you're going to have a failure to return to homeostasis. You're going to have too much inflammation on signal, not enough inflammation off signal. So if you measure an animal that's in like a really nice condition, they're not being injured, they're not being infected, they're not being insulted in any way, you might measure no harm. But that's a very different situation than actually perturbing the system and watching it fail to return back to normal.
Right, exactly. Yeah. This is another best way. Like, for example, two individuals sometimes take the same drug, but they don't get the effect because one have different dietary conditions, and his fat interacting with the effect from that medicine and leading to the different direction, whereas the other person is getting the benefit because his fat content is, for example, let's take the simplest example is aspirin. Now, if we want to have a better outcome for the aspirin, then body needs to have the appropriately balance of omega-3 and omega-6 so that body can utilize right amount of the omega-6 and omega-3 to make the next generation molecules. Imagine if the body don't have omega-3 or less amount of omega-3, abundance of omega-6, the body has no choice, but it will process the omega-6. You will have a pro-inflammatory molecules. And the simplest analogy for the listeners I would like to mention is that imagine now we want to change the car oil, not the electric, but the normal vehicles.